All right, folks. I'm excited to work on a project that I'm going to work on all semester long with my students. Now, this project, I'm going to implement all of the theory, all of the concepts from the lecture. So this week, there's a lecture on Express. And then I'm going to build that theory, the theory from the lecture, into a project that is a newly renovated BellevilleRunningClub.com. And as we go through this semester, you'll see why I want to rebuild this site. But I'm a member of this nonprofit running group in Belleville, Illinois. And as a web developer, I played a role in building this site into what it is today. That's built on top of WordPress, but I'm going to rebuild it and in the MERN stack, and for various reasons that will be beneficial for a new BellevilleRunningClub.com. And so the way I'm going to start this is with a GitHub repository. Now again, this is going to help prepare you for your labs. This video is just the initial project setup video, which you have to do the project setup first, and then the next video that I'm going to do probably tomorrow will be really geared at helping you on your next lab assignment. So we're going to do a setup video and another video for the lab help. So on github.com, I'm logged in. I'm going to create a new repository and no template. I'm going to choose I am the owner, and I'm going to call Belleville Running Club my repository name. I'm going to make this a public repo. I'm going to add a README file. I'm going to choose a git ignore of node, since that's the system we're in. It'll ignore like the node modules folder, which is a lot of files that don't need to be copied up to github.com. I'm going to choose MIT license. That is saying, hey, if any code in here you want to reuse my code, that is completely free and legal to do. Let's create that repository and copy this URL to the clipboard. You should be able to use either GitHub Desktop or your tool of choice to then clone this repository onto your computer. So I'm going to choose a folder of mine and clone that repository. You can see I had a folder here that I'm currently deleting. Let me pause while this deletes. And I'm going to point this out. This folder that I'm deleting was kind of my draft of this video that I was going to do today. And what it's deleting is spending all this time, I've got a fast computer, deleting that node modules folder. So this is why we don't copy node modules up to github.com, because it's just a large amount of files and things that aren't really needed. It's much faster to ignore node modules. So while that's finishing up, we'll pause. Okay, good deal. Now that that's deleted, I'm going to go ahead and clone. Now this is Tortoise Git. Tortoise Git is a tool that's built into Windows, and it will clone my GitHub repository into this directory. So I'll just click OK. We see success. There's my folder, which I can right-click and open with code. If you have that option there, that's great. If not, you can open up a new VS Code and open the folder from within Open Folder menu. So let's click on Open Folder, Desktop, click, BellevilleRunningClub.com, and we're off. Now, in this project setup, what I'm going to do differently this semester than I've done in the past is I'm going to put both my backend and my front end in the same project. And I don't expect that to come without some learning curves for me. I've done this a handful of times already, but even yesterday I went to record a video and I had a problem. So even though I've done this a handful of times, I still may encounter a problem or two. However, the first thing I'm going to start up is a new terminal. And so what I'm saying is we're going to build a full stack web application all inside of this folder. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create the front end with React. Now, we have touched on React in our first year of curriculum, but we haven't dove deep into React, which we will in part of this course. We will do a deep dive on React. For right now, all we're going to do is install React and maybe make like one change to some HTML and not much else. We're going to do a build so that it can deploy, but we're not going to do a lot with React right now. So if you're uncomfortable with React, just walk through these steps and don't worry about understanding it deeply, because that is something we will cover in this course. The command to install React is npm create vite at latest. And of course you have to have Node to run npm Node.js installed. You should already have that. And what this is going to do is basically ask you the name of your folder for your subfolder here. I'm just going to call my subfolder Frontend. So I'm going to have a folder called Frontend with all of my React files in it. I'm going to use the arrow keys to select React, and I'm going to use the arrow keys to select JavaScript. And so that brings in some files for React, but it doesn't bring in node modules. Again, we talked about why we don't bring in node modules. It's a huge folder. So what we do is in our terminal, we do a cd change directory to the front end. And by the way, if you start typing FRON and you just, even FR, the first couple letters, and you hit tab, it'll kind of autofill based on its options. So that's why it kind of looks like that. And then you run an npm install command, or npm I for short. And this downloads all the JavaScript dependencies that React needs. And so this download is happening pretty fast and bringing in that node modules folder. But it is a lot of files, so let it spin. And then right away, what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate into my source directory. I'm going to open up app.jsx. I'm going to delete the homepage markup. And I'm just going to put an H1 that says Belleville Running Club. And so if I run this, the way to run this is npm run dev. We can see that this is running on our localhost web server, and I see Belleville Running Club. So it's working on localhost, and we kind of have our little fave icon. There's some Bootstrap built in, doing some text centering and getting that in the middle of the screen. But that's all I want my React app to do. Now, go back to the terminal and hit Control-C to terminate the web server. And the next command is npm run build. And what the build command will do is it will make a new folder called dist for distribution and compile all of our files down into you can kind of see, into a single HTML file that links to a CSS file and links to a JavaScript file. So now it created this dist folder. This dist folder is what you point at for deployment. So if I look at this index.html, it points at this JavaScript, and that JavaScript file is where all the magic happens that is React, and it links to this CSS file. But this is the command that we needed to run, and we're happy now. npm run build. I'm going to go cd ... That's going to take me back to my root directory in the terminal. That goes up a directory. And then the next command I'm going to run is npm init. npm init gets my package.json. And this is kind of an interactive mode for building your package.json. And my package name is Belleville Running Club. This will be my version 1 of my software. A MERN stack website for the Belleville Running Club in Belleville, Illinois. Period. Enter. We'll make the entry point index.js. That's fine. test command is empty. Git repository. Let's copy my URL and paste with the right click. Keywords, running club, and why not exercise, get fit. You can change these keywords later. Evan Gudmestead. And we typically do the MIT license. And is this okay? Yes. So this creates our package.json. The next thing I'm going to do is create my Express server. Again, please, if you haven't already watched my lecture on Express.js, please watch that lecture. I'm going to be pulling from that. I'm going to add a type here of module. So I'm modifying my package.json to use the new ES6 modules instead of the common JS modules. So this will allow the imports in our JavaScript file. And I'm going to make a script for a start script. So here's a start script that will run with Node. This needs to be index.js. Index.js we said is our main file. So I need to create index.js, and when I run the start script, it basically runs my index file. And I think that's all I'm going to have to modify for my package JSON. Let's create index.js. And let's just console log hello world. So that if I were to run node run start, I'll do this 100 times. npm run start. I always get my boot commands wrong. So it runs index.js. Index.js says hello world, and we're cooking now. Now we bring in Express. So we've done some stuff on the front end. We're ready to start working on the back end. The back end is Express. And I'm going to import Express from Express. I'm going to build my Express app. So we brought in a function called Express from the Express dependency. I call that method on line 3 and build my server, my application server called app. I'm going to install some middleware extended to true. Let me explain line 4. We're going to be from the client is going to make requests to our backend. And what line 5 does is it allows our Express server to read the URL and encode that URL. In the URL, there's information coming across in packets. Those TCP/IP packets have a header and it has a body. And so the data that's coming from the client is coming in these packets. These packets have header information and body information. This allows us to read that body that's coming across the internet and work with the information in that body as JavaScript objects. So this is a way, when I look at line 5, this is a way to treat the body of the URL as strings or objects. And so, this is really just boilerplate. I mean, that's like the short version of it. But this is going to allow our Express server to work with HTTP requests and then work with the data that's coming across HTTP in our JavaScript world, in JSON objects, JavaScript objects as such. So that's always kind of a confusing line that hopefully that can clarify that for you. Another thing I'm going to do is tell Express where to find my home page. We defined Express, and there you can see this is the static files from our React app. And so that's in a front end directory inside of dist. And I'll do a const port equals. Now, let me explain line 9. Line 9 says, hey, look in a .env file. We're going to create a .env, which is where we're going to create variables. So again, a .env is a file. We will put variables in it. And these are specifically called environment variables. And so look for this port number in this environment variable file. Otherwise, use port number 5000. So until we create this file, it's basically going to say const port equals 5000. And then we're going to listen. We're going to tell our Express app to listen on that port. And you can kind of see app.listen. So we're telling our Express application server to listen on port 5000. And when it gets a request coming in on port 5000, it's going to respond with a console.log. Okay, now, if I run this now, if I do npm run start, cannot find package Express. Okay, we need to install Express, npm I Express. It's not in my package JSON. I have not installed Express as a dependency yet, so let's not forget that. And now let's run our application. And it says server started on port 5000. I actually would like this to be a clickable link, so I will do http://localhost:/. And if I control C that, quit my server, run it again. Now that kind of, if I hold down control, I can follow the link. And notice it serves up my front end page. So beautiful. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. It's serving up my front end page. So what happens here is my application server, when you hit the default route for my application server, which I haven't coded it, but it does have a default route that I don't need to code, it automatically serves up my front-end dist folder with my HTML in it. Okay, now I'm going to make a new route here that says, hey, if they go to a backend of /API, I'm just going to send back something different. So this creates a backend route. Let's finish it properly. So a common question I get is, Mr. G, what's the difference between a front-end route and a back-end route? Because they're both just file paths. And the answer is typically what they serve. Typically, front-end routes, if you hit a front-end route, you're going to receive a response from a web server with front-end files, things like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you hit a back-end route, typically what a back-end route will serve you is not HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Typically what a back-end route will serve you is something from a database, is typically what it serves up. And so, you know, you hit a front-end route, you get front-end files. You hit a back-end route like /API. Probably what we're going to do in here is actually call a database and work with Mongo database or something of the like. So what I want to check now is that I can hit both my front-end routes and my back-end routes. So I'm going to have to restart this server. And I am getting my front-end route because I'm getting my front-end static file kind of being served up. And if I do a /API, I get hello from server. So this is the code. This is all the code that I need to set this up. I've got front end, I've got back end. And the next thing I'm going to do is get this deployed onto the internet. We use Google Cloud in this class. So I've asked my students to set up their free credits on Google Cloud. Assuming you've already done that. If you haven't done that, I'm just going to say, reach back out to me or go through those steps that I've already, asked you to do in the first 10 days of this class. You should have, if you go to cloud.google.com, and if you've set up your free credits under the billing, and so let me kind of back up here. If I go to cloud.google.com, okay, it brings you to this home screen, cloud.google.com, and you click on Council. So that's where I get to here. And you should, and even if you're not in my class, of course, you could set up, your own billing, and there's free credits. You should have, if I look at my billing accounts, I actually have 2 billing accounts for education. These are what we got set up through class. And so you definitely need to get this set up for the next steps. Okay, please reach out to me if you don't have that set up or you need help getting that set up. The next thing you'll need set up is the Google Cloud SDK. And so this is these are the command line tools that you'll need to deploy your application. All right, if you don't install the Cloud SDK, you will not have the command line tools that I'm going to use here to deploy. And so you click on Get Started, and then you need the latest G Cloud, and then here's the download link. Download it, install it, all defaults. When you install it, you finish the installation, it's going to run a setup wizard to log you into the terminal, into your Gmail account that has the free credits. So I believe it's a gcloud init is the command that you need to run, but it should run automatically at the end of the installer. So again, install this tool, run the installer. At the end of the installer, run the configuration, the gcloud init. Link it up to the account with your free credits, and you'll be ready to go. If you need any help with that, please reach out to me. What I'm going to do now, I've got some different projects. And so I invite you to do the same thing when you're ready to do this. Again, you're just following along right now. You don't have to do this if you're in my class, but I'm going to create a new project. We will be doing this for our lab, which is around the corner. Call this Belleville Running Club. Now, I already had this on here once, and so I wouldn't be surprised if it won't let me do this again. So let me click Create. And select the project. And I do notice it added some random numbers behind on my project ID. And so I need that project ID. So I'm going to go ahead and click on copy. And I'm going to go back to my terminal. So I'm going to close this. Now again, the tools that are in that SDK need to be installed and accessible on your terminal. So the first thing I need to do is I need to switch my project using gcloud config set project to my Belleville Running Club project. Okay, so I created the project. I needed to switch to that project. And now I'm ready to install. And so the install command, deploy, not install, gcloud, run deploy, and we'll just call this brc-service. Now there's some things to select. You have to say yes to. So the source code location is correct. So I'm just going to hit enter. on that prompt. It says, do you want to enable these APIs? I'm going to type in the letter yes. Y for yes. And then it's going to ask me a question about allowing anonymous users. I'm going to select yes. This is asking me what's the closest location. I'm in the Midwest, so US Central is the closest server to deploy this to. Do you want to continue? Yes. Setting the region, it looks like. Allow unauthenticated internet users? Yes. Okay, I'm going to pause here because this literally takes probably 5, if not longer, minutes. We're going to let this spin. Okay, at the end of this, it says service deployed, service URL. I can hold down Control and click this. Okay, the deployment worked, and what we're looking at, if we click on the BRC service, is that now on this URL is live on the internet, and it serves up my front end React page. And if I go to my backend route, we get hello from the server. And so this is the project setup. This is where I wanted to get you to, and we'll stop this video here. Now, next video, I'm going to do this process again for your final project, which is a semester-long project. I'll help you all get set up with your lab.